My name is Kendra Ledesma, and today I'm making a traditional apple pie because while we honor the powerful women who helped shape American freedom, it is also a reminder of how for centuries women were confined to the home, expected to bake, sew, and raise families, often making pies like this one, while being denied a voice in the very laws that governed their lives. But as we'll see, the women of early America did far more than stir pie filling. They stirred change, challenged injustice, and helped shape a nation that would one day recognize their full rights, both inside and far beyond the kitchen. In colonial times, women's roles were largely centered around the home and family. They were expected to manage household duties such as cooking, cleaning, sewing, and raising children, while also supporting their husband's work, especially on farms or in small family businesses. Legally and politically, women had few rights. They could not vote, hold office, or own property if married. Despite these restrictions, women played vital roles in sustaining colonial society, often contributing to community life through church involvement, informal education, and even organizing boycotts during times of political unrest. Their labor and influence, though often overlooked, were essential to colonial life. One woman who challenged these limitations was Abigail Adams, the wife of founding father and future President John Adams, born in 1744 in Massachusetts. Abigail was unusually well educated for a woman of her time and held strong political opinions during the American Revolution. As John traveled for political work, Abigail managed the family farm and wrote frequent letters to him, offering advice and commentary on national affairs. In one of her most famous letters, written in March 1776, she urged John to remember the ladies. As he and others crafted the new laws of the nation, she wrote, "I desire you would remember the ladies, and be more generous and favorable to them than your ancestors. Do not put such unlimited power into the hands of the husbands. Remember all men would be tyrants if they could." She went on to warn, "If particular care and attention is not paid to the ladies, we are determined to foment a rebellion, and will not hold ourselves bound by any laws in which we have no voice or representation," said Abigail Adams to the primary source of the 1776 letter written to her husband called "Remember the Ladies." Though John Adams dismissed her plea as humorous or moral balderdash, Abigail's words were serious and bold. Her letter stands as one of the earliest documented calls for gender equality in the new republic. It made clear that women were aware of their exclusion and were not afraid to speak out about it. The same spirit of justice carried into the abolitionist movement of the early 19th century, where many women found their political voices by fighting to end slavery. Activists like Sojourner Truth, Lucretia Mott, and the Grimm sisters, Angelina and Sarah, spoke out boldly against slavery while also challenging the social structures that silenced women. These reformers defied both gender and racial boundaries in a time where even speaking publicly as a woman was considered scandalous. Despite the influence of the Great Awakening and the tools of moral suasion, abolition demonstrated that there were drastic inequalities in the right of citizenship between men and women, said Lesson Line, Abolition and the Second Great Awakening, that I had found through lecture. Angelina Grimm, raised in a prominent slaveholding family in South Carolina, became one of the first Southern women to publicly denounce slavery. In 1836, she published her widely circulated pamphlet, Appeal to the Christian Women of the South. It was a revolutionary document, directly addressing Southern women, written from a Southern woman, not because of its anti-slavery message. It also urged them to take the moral action. She had written, "It is because I feel a deep and tender interest in your present and internal welfare that I am willing thus publicly to address you. Some of you have loved me as a relative, and some have felt bound to me in Christian sympathy and gospel fellowship. Be not afraid then to read my appeal. It is not written in the heat of passion or prejudice, but in that solemn calmness which is the result of conviction and duty. I do not believe the time has come when Christian women will not endure sound doctrine, even on the subject of slavery, if it is spoken to them in tenderness and love. We must come back to the good old doctrine of our forefathers who declared the world this self-evident truth that all men are created equal. The women of the South can overthrow this horrible system of oppression and cruelty, fight against it with Christian weapons, and you are now loudly called upon by the cries of the widow and the orphan to arise and gird yourselves for this great moral conflict, said Angela Grimmick through the primary source of her speech. Grimmick's words challenged women to confront injustice not just privately but publicly, morally, and spiritually. She recognized that even without the vote, women had power and a duty to act. Thanks to decades of tireless work by women like Grimmick, Mott, Truth, and Stanton, change eventually came. After generations of activism, protests, and persistence, American women finally gained the right to vote in 1920 with the ratification of the 19th Amendment. This was not the end, but the beginning of broader fights for equality in education, employment, politics, and society. Today, women are no longer confined to the home. They lead businesses, write laws, serve in the military, run for president, and change the world every day. And yes, they still make delicious pies when they feel like it, because equality means choosing whether you want to rule the world, bake a pie, or do both. So as this apple pie bakes and fills the air with that sweet, warm smell of tradition, let it also remind us of the generations of women who stirred up change, demanded justice, and helped build a freer America, one slice of progress at a time. This is my unpaper project. Thank you for listening.